Hi, everybody. Hello. Can you hear me fine? Yeah, cool. Hi, I'm Mir Rosenberg. I'm a senior program manager in the Windows Manageability team in Redmond at Microsoft. And more specifically, I work for the PowerShell team, Windows PowerShell. But today we are here to talk about, just to make sure you're in the right session, some tips on managing and automating your Windows Server 2008 R2 machines, your client machine, not just the last version, but even client machines as well, and previous versions of server. And I thought it would be cool to start with some short story on how I prepared to come here and present to you at TechEd New Zealand. And I was thinking, the things I knew about New Zealand before even starting to work at Microsoft, and it's the obvious stuff, right? Kiwis and the kiwi bird, which I just learned it doesn't fly, so that's interesting. Obviously, I knew about the All Blacks, and the reason I know about the All Blacks, is that I'm from Argentina. We also have a rugby team, but it's not nearly as good as yours. So it actually took me a while to find one picture where my team is taking, the rugby ball away from your team. So this was the only one I found, actually. So yeah, and you even have a Monopoly version of the All Blacks, I learned, which is really cool. I don't know if in case you want to go get it. But then, at Microsoft, like I said, I'm part of the PowerShell team. So before coming here, and I actually also presented at TechEd Australia last week, I thought, let's do something as a team that, will get me closer to your culture. And the minute I said rugby, they were like, no. We need to be able to code still tomorrow. We don't want to kill each other. So we tried cricket. And since we are such geeks, we had to start with this 5-slide review, a whole PowerPoint presentation on how to play cricket and the rules and all that stuff, right? And this is, I don't know if you can see the font in yellow, but it's this PowerShell team annual event. We actually just did this a couple of weeks ago. So since most of us had no idea about how to play cricket, we had to do this technical presentation. And then we went on the field, and that's not for me. I just suck at batting. I tried it 6 times. None of them, like you can see the ball, didn't hit my bat. Or I didn't hit the ball. So that's not for me. But then I went to TechEd Australia last week, like I said, and I found this really cool thing in Sydney, actually. It's right next to the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So I thought you'd like it. I know that the Rugby World Cup is here next year. That must be super exciting. And then I found this ad in Australia, actually, which I thought was pretty cool. And by the way, in New Zealand, I came with them here, awesome airline. So when I got here, they had this security video, right, the regular security video. And I was about to not watch it because I've been flying, hours and hours to come here. But I said, okay, let's take a look at that. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's made with the All Blacks. And I think their coach also. And it's so funny. So next time you fly, take a look at that. And then I got to the airport. 2 blocks from the airport, I had already seen 4 ads from the All Blacks. So that was awesome. I already felt like I was here. And then I ran into these strange signs. Dogs kill kiwi, I don't know. That's interesting. But then I said, you know what? I have a few days. So just so we get started with the presentation, I have a few days after TechEd New Zealand. So I was overwhelmed with the options. There are so many things to do here, right? So I've been trying to decide, and as I read through the different flyers and books and whatnot, I felt like, that must be how our customers feel when they have to manage a Windows Server machine. There are so many things to do, so many different applications, things I need to take care of. Where do I start? What do I do first? So that's the whole goal of this presentation, trying to help, navigate the road of managing and automating your IT administration tasks. And the way we usually start with this is with the things that we hear from you. Instead of saying, hey, this is what you should do, what are your problems? What are the things that you usually run into? So obviously, this is what we hear. Then you can tell me if, this was right or if you run into different problems. But I thought it would be cool to start with, in general, how do I manage all of my machines? I don't just have, the one machine with the latest version. I have many machines heterogeneous environment, and I don't want to be at the server to manage my machines. I want to be able to manage from my client. That's what we heard at least when we did site visits and talks with customers. Next, how do I automate those tasks, right? I don't want to keep doing things one after the other manually, like I have 15 tasks I need to remember. It gets complicated. And once I fix my Windows management problem, I still have all this hardware I need to manage, and I need to manage across firewalls as well. So how does the latest version of Windows and Windows PowerShell in general help me with that? How do I automate all of my machines, right? Not just manage them. And finally, why would I spend the time? This is the question we get very often. Why would I spend the time learning Windows PowerShell? It's yet another language, scripting language, yet another console. Why do I need to spend that time? What's in it for me? What's going to give me as a return? So we can start with how we think about this Windows management world. And we have this Windows management framework that helps us think around it. Basically how we think about management in general. So we start with the user experience. The idea is that I need to have, or as an IT pro, I need to have the right tools to get my job done. So not do what Microsoft says or what we say we should do to manage your servers, but the tasks I need to do. What's the user experience for them? And then the access, because as I said before, you don't just want to have to go to the server. You want to be able to manage from your client machine, from home, from your mobile, wherever you need to. And finally, automating those tasks so you don't run into errors. You can give those tasks maybe to somebody else to run if you feel like doing that, or somebody can give them to you. You can share that automated management task, etc. So if we look at the architecture at the high level, we start with the automation platforms. So we have a bunch of services like BITS, Background Intelligent Transfer Service, and then a set of management protocols. And we'll go into them in a minute, so it's fun if you haven't seen them before, WSMan and WMI. The idea is that they let me manage not just the OS, but also the hardware, and they are standards-based. So I can manage a heterogeneous set of devices, not just Windows machines, not just the latest version. I can even manage my routers, my printers, etc. And then the automation environment that is comprised of, the PowerShell engine, which is basically this interactive and intuitive command console host, and a full scripting language also that basically allows me to, gives me this, as we can see here on the right, this universal execution environment. I'm sorry about the last bullet here. It was hard to put everything together in this widescreen format. So next is this access level that we saw in the previous slide, right? So I can remotely manage my machines, and not just one at a time, but multiple machines. And that is basically the remote server administration tools. I don't know if you've seen them before, but I have a link to them at the end, so you can try them out. And PowerShell remoting. I'll show you a demo of PowerShell remoting also coming up. And finally, the user experience. So we have this whole set of server management solutions, including Server Manager, Server Migration, Best Practices Analyzer, and the PowerShell ISC. So these are solutions that are oriented to specific tasks that you have to perform. They are extensible by third parties. So for instance, Server Manager, which we'll look at in a minute, is based on, it's built on top of MMC. So you can do third-party extensibility there. So now switching to demos, because I want to show you a lot of demos today. Let's take a look at how you manage all of your machines. So in this case, what we have is the Windows Server 2008 R2 machine, but this is also available in the previous version. This is what we call Server Manager. This is the console that launches every time you log on to Windows, you restart your machine as soon as you are done with Windows Server setup. And it's in every version of the OS, obviously except for Server Core, which is not doesn't have GUI. But you can still, from another machine, you can open this Server Manager and manage a Server Core machine. So that even allows you to talk to Server Core. So in this case, we have the root page, right? What we call a root page here on the left. of the navigation pane. And here I can see a summary of all of my my core items in the server, right? So I got my computer name, my domain, IP information or network connectivity information, even the product ID, which every now and then I need to look for that. I can collapse panes or expand based on what I need, even security information. Here on the right, I have a set of tasks, so the most common tasks that are related to the information I see on the left. So the whole point of Server Manager is I don't need to go and open 10 different tools and figure out what those tools are, where they are, to manage my server machines, right? I can just come here, my core tasks and my core tools should be all in one place. So that will save me a lot of time. It will help me learn and do my tasks faster, right? So again, I can collapse this, and then what I see is a list of the server roles that are installed on this machine. So if you haven't played with Server Manager before, server roles are basically these Windows Server components that I would consider either dedicating a whole server to perform that function, or maybe 2-3 roles at most, right? So for instance, we have Active Directory, domain services, we have print services, DNS, etc. Those big chunks, those big components. So in this case, you can see I have Hyper-V installed and IIS. And you see, there is kind of like it seems like there is a problem here. So that's another cool thing. I don't need to go find the Hyper-V console, treat into that. I already know there is a problem with Hyper-V. There is something that needs my attention. So I need to have these 15 different consoles open at a given time. So if I click here, I can go directly to the specific page for Hyper-V. So again, I don't need to drill through, in the event log, event viewer, through all of these events, find the ones that are Hyper-V related. I can just see here the ones I care about. Just like in event viewer, I can double click a given event and get the actual details, the error details. I can also go filter events, I only want to see critical, let's say, etc. Right? So again, everything is at my fingertips. Another thing I can see here is the services. Same story. If I go to Services Console, I get all of the services across the whole machine that are up and running, stopped, etc. In this case, I just care about Hyper-V. Let's say I don't manage any other role. So I only have the stuff I care about right there for me. I can, come here to the right, stop, restart the service, etc. And then the next thing I want to show you is if you go to the IIS role page. Let me collapse the summary real quick. The next thing I have is, one more thing I want to show you. The best practices analyzer. So that's basically a set of rules and models that I can use to scan my machine for a given role and say, hey, is this machine configured properly or according to best practices for this role that I need to manage? So I don't even need to think or figure out, what are the right things I need to do to configure this role. They are going to basically be told to me, right? So in this case, I can see, okay, there is an error. And it doesn't only give me the issue, but what's the impact of that issue on me and the resolution. And I also have a link to more information. I can see, these are the non-compliant rules. Everything else I'm compliant. I can even see what's checking for, right? And then I can scan the role again. The last thing I want to show you here is if I want to add more roles, if I go back to the roles page or Server Manager, I can go to here on the right, to the Add Roles wizard. And again, I don't even need to figure out, where is the CVS component or go to the console. I have here all of my rows. I can choose which one I want to install. So let's say in this case, if I want print, I have here a navigation pane. So I can either click here or go next. I have a summary of what the role does, things that I should know about the role, even more help topics. Again, I don't need to go find help topics on print. They are right here for me, the core ones. And I can choose even the subcomponents. One thing that is interesting about this is that if there is an issue, or if there is something else I need to know before I install this role, it's all here for me as well, right? So in this case, I say, okay, if you want to install this subcomponent, what we call role service, you have to be joined to a domain. So I won't get in trouble because this is taking care of all of the things I need to do for me. Another thing that is really cool about this wizard is that if there is a dependent component, so let's say if some component depends on IIS, I don't need to go find out that I also need to install IIS. This wizard will tell me, hey, by the way, when you install this print component, you will need these other IIS components. Do you want me to install them for you? So again, everything is done for me. I don't even need to think about it, right? So let me cancel out of that because I want to go back and show you some other things. So if we go back to the presentation, here, yeah. We did that demo. Now, if I want to automate my operations, right? So there are two ways to automate your IT tasks. One is a formal way. The other one is an informal way. Like everything else, up to your taste, what do you want to learn, what do you want to do, or what your needs are. So the formal way is based on industry standards. We'll go through some of them in a minute. But mainly it's comprised of schemas, profiles, and protocols that will allow me to manage a heterogeneous set of devices. Not just one type of machine and not just computers, but also routers, printers, whatnot. And it's great. It's super comprehensive. It lets me do everything I want pretty much, management-wise. But, it's a little bit difficult to get started with. Like I said, it's a formal way. It's not the most intuitive of the protocols or schemas that you've seen. And that's mainly comprised of SIEM and WMI. We'll go through them in a minute. And the other way is the informal way, which is basically, we have different data types, different formats, different tools, etc. So how do we glue them together in a way that allows me to customize this formal way to automate my IT operations to my needs? So I can expand, I can adapt different things, put one script on top of the other, call one script from the other, get stuff from the community, etc. And as my environment changes, I can also make changes to these tools in a very easy way. And that's mainly Windows PowerShell. So let's start with the formal ways. What I did is, since we only have 60 minutes, I have some extra slides here that talk a little bit more about the theory, more detail, etc. But I'm going to leave them here in case you want to go through them in more detail later. All of this will be available online. But I want to dedicate most of the time for demos. So we'll go through this kind of quickly. If you want to drill down more, feel free. You have access to take it online. But I didn't want to leave them out at the same time, So you have the material if you want to investigate more. So starting with SIEM. SIEM is the Common Information Model. It's basically one of these standards, industry standards I was talking about. In this case, it's a standard defined by the DMTF body, which is the Distributed Management Task Force. And basically it defines two things, a set of schemas and a set of profiles. Schemas are these standard models that allow me to talk to different management objects. So I can talk to devices, I can talk to computers, I can talk to processes, physical assets, whatnot. And then I can group these schemas into profiles. So basically the profiles are these gatherings, groups of SIEM models. So then I can concentrate on specific management areas. Like I want to say, the boot source setting or the power settings for a given machine, etc. So SIEM is a consistent way to manage basically everything I need to manage in my environment. Now, WMI is basically providing me access through DCOM to my SIEM, my SIEM models, my SIEM profiles, etc. So it's this common way that allows me to communicate. Even Windows components can create these WMI providers or third parties. So I can go and manage those components, do anything I want to do from a management perspective against those components. And again, it's one of those formal ways to do IT management. Now, what we have is, when it comes to moving to the informal side of things, Windows PowerShell will provide me access to SIEM and WMI from an informal point of view. What does that mean? Basically, starting with PowerShell is our strategic, automation platform, we call it. And it's comprised of two key parts. One is the shells, the console host, so the regular Windows PowerShell console host. We'll look at that in a minute. And the other one is the Integrated Scripting Environment, or ISE. So if you're more of a GUI type of person, and you'd like to do your scripting and type your commands, your IT management tasks from a GUI type of console, then ISE is the one for you. Again, we'll look at that in a minute as well. PowerShell also allows me to use this set of commands to do the same things that I can do through WMI and SIEM, but instead of typing a long command with many parameters and whatnot, I can just type a commandlet or run one of my scripts, and it simplifies. And again, it's one of those things that I need to show you, so I want to move on to the demo. But I can just type the script name, pass the credentials I need if I need to pass any credentials, and it will do the same type of things that WMI will allow me to do, but the user experience is very different. I can easily share scripts with the community, with my other colleagues, other IT professionals. I can give them to somebody else that maybe has no idea about SIEM or WSMan, and they can just run it and get the same outcome, right? So the key thing here is PowerShell simplifies the method for you to create your own automation solutions, to enhance on them, to change them if your needs change, etc. And a really good thing is that it's built on top of .NET Framework. So it's a super powerful scripting language, right? Because instead of just managing, having access to strings, integers, whatnot, I can navigate through full .NET objects, properties, methods, whatnot, right? So it's super rich from that perspective. One of the key features in PowerShell v2, the one that shipped with Windows Server 08R2, is remoting. That's like our star feature of v2. And remoting basically will allow me to do all of those things, all of the scripts I have, run all of the commandlets that PowerShell provides me, but from anywhere, right? So from my machine at home, my machine at work, I can talk to any of my servers, either if they are here, remotely, wherever they are, and I can talk from one machine to many to one to one. It's very flexible. So that's why we say it's this ubiquitous execution environment. And I can also delegate tasks. And we'll take a look at the first part of delegation in a minute. But let's say, I have these repetitive tasks that I have to do. I don't have time for everything. Or some tasks, really, I know that this other person in my company can do. So I can say, you know what? From now on, you only have access to these tasks and nothing else. So I can trust that, I'm not letting somebody touch my whole server and get me in trouble. At the same time, I can go and concentrate on other more interesting or more important tasks. So we'll see how we can do delegated administration in a minute as well. So let's start with PowerShell remoting. Let me show you this demo real quick. And one thing I'm doing here in the interest of time is, for this demo at least, is using this, what we call the start demo. So all of the commands that I'm going to execute are actually executing now, real time, but I'm saving the typing time so I can show you more things. By the way, this start demo is really useful if you want to teach somebody else a set of scripts or a set of steps, commands that you want to run. And it's available from our blog that is linked to from the end. So this demo, I'll just start demo. The next demo, I'll just do it live. But how do we start? We start by enabling PowerShell remoting. And the thing you can see here, enable PS remoting, is basically a command. We call them commandlets. It's a verb-noun, if you haven't seen PowerShell before. So we have enable is the verb, PS remoting is the noun. And we try to make it as self-explanatory as possible. So if you see enable PS remoting, like what this is doing, kind of helpful to have something that explains what the actual commandlet will do. So once we type in enable PS remoting, what we see is that, in this case, I already had it enabled, but this is turning on WinRM and configuring all the pieces. So now I can talk to this machine, to another machine, to many machines at the same time, all configured for me. So the next step is, if I want to run one command, against another machine, I can just use the dash computer name parameter that we'll see in a minute. But if I want to run a set of commands and I want to persist the connection to another machine, so I can use variables across several commands, I can use the outcome of one command for the next one, and through my scripts, etc. That's when I want to create a new PS session. A PS session is basically a persistent connection to another computer. So in this case, if I type help or get-help, to be consistent with the naming, and any of the commands or any of the key, what we call about topics that detail, anything you can do with a given feature, what I get in this case is the list of commands, that deal with sessions, right? So in this case, I can see I can register a new session configuration. I can unregister a session, all of the different commands. I can create a new PS session, one of these new persistent connections, etc. So key thing to remember, there are 4 commands to do PowerShell remoting. And I'll show you the different things you can do. The first one is invoke command. Basically, I want to run a command, but not here. I want to run it either on another session or on another computer. So that's when I use invoke command. Again, help will give me all of the details. I won't go through this in detail, but I'll post all of these scripts to the PowerShell blog that is linked to at the end, so you can see them, and learn from them in detail. But like I said, this invoke command will basically run a command on the remote computer or remote set of computers that I specify. And new create session will create this session that I mentioned, this persistent connection to another machine. The next command is enter PS session. So now if I want to do, kind of like Telnet, if I want to manage another machine one-on-one, so it's basic remoting, right, just against one machine, then I want to enter that session. I can either specify a computer name or a session that I want to connect to. So what's the difference? If I do enter PS session, again, this is just showing you what the commands are. We'll use them in a minute. But if I do enter PS session and I specify a computer name, then I'm just going to run a command once against that computer. If I specify a session, like I said, it's persistent, right? So I can continue running a set of commands one after the other. The values, variables and the outcome of scripts are persisted. So finally, import PS session. If I want to connect to another computer, run a few things, but I also want to have those commands available to me in my local computer. That's when you want to use import PS session. So basically importing, again, very self-explanatory by the name, importing the commands from another computer to mine. So I don't need to install everything, on my computer. I can just import what I need. So I can specify specific commands. I can just say one command, not everything, right? So let's start with the real thing. So in this case, I'm going to use invoke command, again, to connect remotely. In this case, I'm using localhost because I have the machine configured to do remoting to this other box for a later demo. But, instead of localhost, you can type any computer that you want to use. And I can even specify a script block. In this case, it's a very basic one, get process. It will get me a list of processes that are running on that machine that start with SVC. So again, don't feel intimidated if you haven't seen PowerShell before. I'm just trying to explain step by step. Obviously, we can't, teach you all of PowerShell in 60 minutes. But feel free to stop me if something is unclear. So again, in this case, I'm going to invoke this command, this script block, on another computer. In this case, I'm using localhost, and run it there, right? So let's see what happens. So what I get in this case is, okay, these are all the processes, all the service host instances that I have running on that computer. Now, I can run a whole script remotely, right? Not just one command. So that's where it gets even more powerful. In this case, what I did is I typed get WMI objects. So basically, it will get me a list of logical disks of drive type 3. I know this sounds like, it's complicated. What do you mean by this? That's what I meant when I said, WMI is the formal way. Maybe I have no idea what drive type 3 is. In this case, I know, I'm telling you, it's the hard disk drive, right? But that's what I mean. You can choose that if you feel that's the way you want to go, or you can choose PowerShell. So in this case, what I did is I saved this script that then will show me, the device ID and the free space on that disk drive to this local script, right? I saved it there. So what I do now is, let's say I want to see the contents of that script. So that's where I use get content, just another command, and I specify the path to the script I want to show. So in this case, I can see, okay, that's actually what the script has, which what I just showed you, right? So now, again, maybe I got that script from somebody else because I don't know WMI, or I want to give it to somebody else that can just run invoke command against the given computer, run that script, and then one more thing I want to show you is the out-grid view. Since we are in the ISC, the Integrated Scripting Environment, and like I said, this is a GUI-based host. In this case, I can show GUI for specific things. So I'm saying, okay, these are my hard drives on this machine. This is the free space for each, etc. I can sort. That's the benefit of having a GUI. And I can even add filtering criteria. I can say, just show me free space. And I can say, okay, show me when the free space is less than or equal to this number. So I only see 2 now, right? Or I see everything, right? I can delete, etc. Okay. So, sorry. Now, like I said, if we want to persist the connection and not just run one command, that's when we use the PS session. So I can pretend, and also, by the way, like I said, the benefit of using StarDemo is not just that I'm saving the typing part. I can give you the script, right? And then when you run it, you see actually what it's doing because I can even add comments. So it's a very cool tool. So in this case, I'm going to create a sessions variable. That basically, what I'm going to save to that variable is new PS session. I'm connecting, I want to create a session to these 2 computers, right? So now when I type $sessions, again, this variable, what I see is the content of the variable. I see I have 2 sessions open, one to localhost. Again, for this demo, I'm using the local machine, but imagine this could be any machine anywhere, right? And I see that the sessions are available. So I have these persistent connections to these computers open now. So now, instead of doing invoke command dash computer name, I can do invoke command dash session, and I can use these persistent connections to run a set of commands against those computers instead of having to open a connection to the computer every single time. So let's run the same thing against those computers, and I can see, okay, I have all of the instances of service host, for these 2 computers. See, I have 1 and 2. Another thing I like about PowerShell is this nice formatting in the table format. By the way, you can choose also list. It's very flexible from that perspective. And now I don't need to, I can run, like I said, many commands against that session without having to reestablish the connection every single time. So now I just need to use dash session and pass, I just saved my sessions in this $sessions variable. So now I can see, okay, get command is basically giving me the list of commands. Basically, if I want to say, hey, is get process available in this computer, right? So I run get command, get me that command that is called get process on these specific computers, on these sessions that I'm connecting against. So I can see, okay, I have 2 instances, one in localhost, one in 127.0.0.1. And then when we are done, this is very important. You don't want to leave open connections around, right? So when you're done, you use the remove PS session commandlet. So another thing that is cool about PowerShell, again, I'm just trying to show you some of the basics in the time that we have, is the pipeline feature. So what I can do is I can run get me a list of sessions, get PS session, and then take that information and remove those sessions. So I can pass the output of one commandlet to the next one. So now that we cleaned up and we don't have those open connections anymore, what happens when I run the same script against many machines? Maybe some of them will go fine, some of them might fail. So what I can do is, basically in this case, I see, okay, if I say get me a process which ID is the one saved in PID, I can see, okay, now we are running PowerShell ISC. You're like, why are you showing me this? Let me show you one thing. What I can do is, if one of those machines, where I run the script failed, I can go connect, enter that specific session. Again, I was running, the same command against all of my sessions, but one of them failed. So I can say, hey, enter that specific session and let me troubleshoot that machine. So I have the flexibility to talk to many and at the same time go to just one, and back to many, one, etc., right? Back and forth. So it's very practical from that perspective. So now, instead of using sessions, I can say, hey, enter that session just for that computer name, right? So now that I enter that computer, you can see how the prompt here is changed. It went from demo to localhost. So now I'm actually at that computer. So it's very clear. I don't have any doubts of where I am right now. And I can also see it, since I'm in ISC, the integrated scripting environment, I can see it here at the top. So now that I'm here, I can do, okay, let me do get process ID again, just to show you that it's a different computer. Now, again, another good thing about Stardemo, I can switch back and forth. Now I'm typing live. So now when I type that, I see, okay, now I'm, WSMAN provider host. It's a different bit. So one more thing I can do is I can exit that. I enter the PS session. I can easily exit. Just type exit when I'm done troubleshooting. And then I can do my cleanup. So I can type get PS session again, just to avoid leaving connections open, remove PS session. Okay? So one more thing I want to show you is if I want to interact with many servers, but from my single local session, that last command that I mentioned, which is import PS session. So I don't want to do enter PS session for each machine, right? I just want to import the command and run it against a set of machines. So if I do invoke command, let me show you why this is necessary. And I say, okay, that's -session $s, where I saved my sessions earlier. I can do that script log. In this case, what I'm going to do, just to show you another cool feature of PowerShell, is how easy it is to define a function. So I can do a function, let's call it get WinRM service. It's a function I'm defining now, so this is the name of my function. And what it does is basically inside this. I can do get service, get me a service, which name is WinRM. Again, just with that, I define a new function. So if I run that, oh, sorry, I'm missing I'm missing an argument. So if I run that, basically what I'm doing is tuk. I think I typed an extra one. Yeah, I'm missing this at the end. Yeah. So basically now that wait, there's something I'm typing wrong. Script log. Oh, no, I know. I just got an extra one. I actually got an extra one. Oops. Function, get service. I'm sorry. Just one more second. Sorry? Oh, yeah, I changed the name, actually. Right, it was sessions, right? No. Well, never mind. That's fine. That's okay. Oh, I know what happened. I forgot. No, I know what happened. Sorry. I forgot to actually define the sessions. So I just closed my session. Since I was clean and I closed my session, I actually need to create a new one, right? That's what's going on. So if I do $s new PS session and I do computer name localhost, computer name localhost, now I can invoke a command against that session. That's why it wasn't working. I forgot to open the session. Session $s, and I can, again, use the script log, function, get WinRM service, and basically that does get service dash name, WinRM. Oops. Okay. And this works now, okay? So I'm invoking, sorry, I just forgot to create the session. I am invoking a command against that session, which is basically a new session I opened on this computer, and I'm calling a function. So function, script blocks, specific commands, whatever I want to write the whole script. Now, what happens in this case? If I just type that new function I created, which is called get WinRM service, right? I just type that. It fails. Why does it fail? Because that's a command that is available on that session, that computer that I just opened. It's not on my machine, right? We don't bring everything by default. We are secure by default, right? So that's when I need to do, okay, I don't need to bring everything again. I can just do import vs session, import vs session, right? And I'm going to say $session, so I can say the specific session I want to import commands from. So I don't import from everywhere. And I can say, the specific command name. By the way, what I'm doing here is I'm typing tab. So again, I don't even need to remember all of the names of the different parameters I can use. So if I say dash command name, I can say get WinRM service, the name of my function, sorry. So in this case, I'm only importing that function. So I can use it from this local machine. So now I can see, okay, this is the set of exported commands, right? So now, if I type that function name, first of all, I already get tab completion. Why? Because the command is now in my machine. And now I can see, it actually runs. The WinRM service is running on that machine. But I can run it locally, as if I was talking to my machine here. So that's the power of remoting. Now, if I want to switch back to the presentation real quick, one of the things that we run into is, I have all these tasks. I really can't cope, with all of the tasks that I need to run. Sometimes I just need to delegate. Now, what's the problem? I have all of these admins. They touch different parts of the servers, right? Maybe you do IIS, you do Hyper-V, etc. And at the same time, they need to be efficient. There is also this line of business application layer that maybe a developer is, programming against, or maybe a user has to run, and they need to be effective at their work at the same time that, you're efficient with your tasks as an administrator. So what do? That's basically when delegated administration comes in. Enabling people, end users, other administrators, developers, whatnot, to run a specific set of tasks that they need to do for their job and nothing else, depending on their role, depending on their abilities, whatever you feel comfortable with. And that's another cool feature that PowerShell provides you with. So you don't need to keep making everybody an admin, not secure, not what you want. They will mess up your machine maybe, and at the same time, they get to do their job like they need. They don't need to ping you for basic tasks because you can just say, those 2 tasks, they can run. I'm fine, but nothing else, right? And then that enables you as an IT professional to focus on, more important or higher value tasks. And even enables cloud scenarios, right? So I can do multi-tenancy. I can say, if I'm a hoster, this guy will only get to touch this part of the server and these specific tasks and nothing else. Let's say he doesn't get language mode, so he can't run loops. He can't, write a script against or execute a script against this machine, whatever I need based on my needs. So the basic building blocks that you need to make this happen is PowerShell remoting, what we just looked at. So you use the sessions that we just demoed. Constrained run space. So you use a startup script, any script that you want to start with. So basically, anytime I create a new session against a given machine, I can say, this is what will run at the beginning, and this will give me just what that person, as a user, when I connect, create a new session, since that startup script ran, that will give me exactly what I can do, and what I can't, I just won't have access to that. So I can feel confident that nobody will do anything that they are not supposed to. It's not a trust system anymore, which, by the way, is something that we find very often. When we do site visits, I was surprised in big companies saying that, I told him he shouldn't touch the production servers. So when we ask, hey, so did you create an AD group to restrict access, or did you use any of these? They're like, no. I just told them, so I trust that they won't touch it. That only goes this long, this far. There will be a time when you get into trouble, and that's when you want delegated administration. So here you can see you can restrict the language mode. You can restrict the specific commands, like I said. And you can also make people able to run under different credentials, run as, right? So that's when IIS hosting comes in. We don't have time to demo that today, but again, I'll post this all to the blog, so you can take a look at that later on. So by registering these specific endpoints or these constrained run spaces is that you get this delegated administration power. It's like restriction for others. You're sure that they will only run what you want them to run. Or same for you, right? If somebody wants to do it for you as well. So let's see. We have 15 minutes left, so I'll show you the basics of this demo. Okay, so I just need to switch to my folder here. There. Okay, so I'll just show you the basics. I create a new session here, like we said before. So I can see that session is now open and available for me. And there is a default configuration that we use for this, but you can basically create your own configuration, like I said. So in this case, I'm going to call it demo delegation. So what I need to do is say, yes, that's fine. And now I can see, okay, I have a new configuration open just for me that I can customize to my needs. So basically, if I do get PS session configuration, I can see all of the sessions, all of the configurations that are available for me. These three come with PowerShell by default. The first one is the new one I just created, which I can customize with the startup script, etc. So I can say, you know what? Not everybody will get access to this. Unless you're in the admin group, which you get access to a given session configuration by default. But I can say, you know what, show me this security descriptor UI, and I can say, I have this group that I created, any ID group you want to create with specific users you want to give access to. So I can say, hey, you know what, for that group, give them full access as well. Again, I'm choosing full access now. You can choose whatever you need in a given moment, right? So now, if I use that configuration name to create a new session, and I say dash credential test user. So let me provide the credentials for a given user and see what they can do. So let me enter the password. Close your eyes for a minute, please. So I can see, oh, now it fails. Why? Because if I go back to Server Manager, again, Server Manager is letting me just go to one place and get everything I need. If I go to my groups here, and I go to my DA group that I created, I can see test user is not here. That's why he doesn't have access. So pretty cool. I just restricted the access to a specific group, and only people that are there have access to that session configuration. So now, if I add that user to that group, and I try to create a new session again using that user's credentials, I type the password. Now I can see, fine. Now the user is in the group that I just restricted access to have, availability on this session, specific session configuration. But now that I added that user to that group, he gets all the good stuff from that session, right, from that configuration. So again, cleaning up time. And I'll delete the user as well. So when we said, we can create the startup script. So when the session is open, this specific configuration name is used, a given script will run. And the PSA commandlet that you see here is another good thing about PowerShell ISC, the integrated scripting environment. It will let me show you the specific script, right? So again, really cool. In the same tool, I have my script pane open right now. So I can say, hey, this is my script. I can say, hey, welcome to TechEd. If it's Tuesday, tell them that the machine will be in maintenance mode. Otherwise, if it's Wednesday, you can open a new session. So if I go back and I say, set this configuration name, demo delegation, with this startup script, and force so it runs right now. So I say, okay, fine. Now I have this startup script that is being enforced every time somebody uses this session configuration name. So if I do new PS session, I can see, hey, welcome to TechEd. By the way, today is Tuesday, right? Remember from the script. So we get this error saying that the machine is in maintenance mode because I'm here. I don't want anybody touching my servers while I'm not there, right? So I can say, hey, your session is maintenance is in progress. You can't do anything on this server. Super powerful. I don't need to worry, right? Whenever I don't want somebody touching my servers, I just block them access. Fine. Even if they are in this group that I mentioned. So if I close this session, and if I change the name now, super easy, just comment out with the pound sign. And I save. So if I close this now, and I try to do the same thing again, right? But now it's a different day. So when I try to do a new PS session, I can see, oh, fine. Okay, now I can create a session because now it's Wednesday. That's the magic of computers. And now my remote session has been created. And I can even add verbose information, all the functions that are available to run in this session, the fact that I can do debugging on this session, etc. I can see a session is available. So in the interest of time, let me switch back so I can show you one last cool demo. I just don't want to let you miss this last demo, which is awesome. So let me skip through. Basically, with delegated admin, that's how you can restrict access, and you can make sure, people through these specific endpoints here that we just defined, constrain the run space, they can run only what they need to run and nothing else. So that's how you solve those IT politics. Now, where WSMan comes in, one of the things I mentioned at the beginning is when I want to automate my, among other things, right? This is not the only, but when I want to automate my hardware operations or when I want to do things across firewalls. Because what we hear from you is I don't just have a Windows management problem, I also need to manage my devices, my hardware in my servers, etc. And I have all these firewalls in the middle. What do I do? So real quick, because I don't want to run out of time for the demo, WSMan is one of these standards protocol that will give me web service access to these formal methods, right, like SIEM. And it will allow me to define specific roles and do things like leverage these smash and dash profiles. Like I said before, I put extra slides on purpose, so you can go through this in more detail later on. But the idea is that I can define these smash and dash profiles that will allow me to do power management, get the list of physical assets on a machine, anything I need to do from a hardware management perspective. I can even get the topology of the system, etc., right? Different access methods, different authentication methods like digest, Kerberos, etc. So, and another really cool thing that I want to show you now is that even if this is a formal way, again, PowerShell comes to the rescue if you feel like a more informal type of management for your IT tasks. You can use PowerShell abstractions, so you can create or share scripts from the community, PowerShell scripts, that will allow you to leverage all these WSMan capabilities, web services access to SIEM and WMI, but do it from a single PowerShell script run. So let me show you how this works right now. Basically, I have my PowerShell client here on the left. On my admin machine, like we said, we want to manage from our client, from home, from wherever I am. And through, the PowerShell client calls the WSMan client APIs, and through a secure, SOAP message through HTTP or HTTPS, I can talk to this WSMan listener on the server side, the server I want to manage. And that basically will call into specific PowerShell plugins, and you can run your commands in your own sessions, like we showed sessions before, etc. But let me show you how this works in practice, because this is just super cool. Okay, so we have 7 minutes. Let me show you real quick. This is the last demo I want to show you. So I'll start by caching my credentials. So I need to provide them every single time. It will save me time. Again, I'm using tab completion. And this is, by the way, this is the regular PowerShell console, so we are not in the GUI mode anymore. So I want to cache my admin credentials, like I said. So let me type the password. So now in this case, we can make sure, first of all, that we can actually talk to this WSMan server. By the way, this is my client. Again, could be at home, could be at work, my client machine. This is my server. For practical airline purposes, I didn't bring a real server all the way down to New Zealand, but this could be a client, the full server, whatever it is. And I'm just connecting from my client machine to the server with a cable. This could be anywhere in the world, Antarctica, wherever you want, right? So I'm going to test WSMan connection from this computer to that computer. So what I'm going to do is do like dash computer name. And before we type the computer name, you can actually type an IP address as well. So in this case, this is the IP address of this machine, right? And I'm going to choose the authentication method. In this case, I'm going to choose digest. And the WSMan port, which is this one. And I'm going to pass the credentials that I just cached. So I can see, fine, now I can connect to my WSMan machine, my WSMan server in this case. And I see that it has an Intel implementation. Now, talking about that, what's special about this machine? This machine has an Intel baseboard management controller. The implementation of WSMan made by Intel is called vPro. I don't know if you've heard of that before. Sometimes you'll see it on these machines. It says vPro in one of the stickers at the bottom. I'm not expecting you to read this, by the way. It's just so that you can see the machine is turned on, right? Okay, so now that I can do that, what I'm going to do is basically enumerate all those theme profiles, the specific abstractions for my management objects that I mentioned earlier. So I can use the getWSMan instance command for that. So in this case, I'm going to say the specific profiles. I want to enumerate the register profiles on this machine. And I need to pass the same information, right? Computer name, .0.1. And I need to pass basically the port again. I'm running the command from scratch. I need to pass the credentials that I cached and the authentication mechanism. Let's keep using digest for now. And finally, like I said, I want to enumerate these profiles, right? So what I see is, again, this machine could be anywhere. I see it has profile registration, base desktop and mobile profile, role-based authorization, many profiles, right? So one thing I can do is say, you know what, this is too complicated. I just want to use scripts because it's hard for me to remember all this stuff. So what I can do here is say, you know what, let me move to one of my scripts. So now if I do it, this could be scripts you got from the community, right? PS1, I can see all of the scripts. So instead of typing this getWSMan commandlet all the time, I can just run any of the scripts. So in this case, let's say get power state. And I can do get power state. I'm going to pass it my credentials. I can see, the power state, can you see this? It says power state here at the bottom, power state on, right? So now let's do something cool. Let's do set power state. Dash power state is basically the parameter I need to use. I want to turn the machine off, right? So to turn the machine off, I need to say power state 8. Again, this is all documented. So if I do power state 8, which is turn it off, and I pass my credentials, $cred, I wait a few minutes and it says return value true. Now, let's see. The machine is actually off, right? So I'm not on this machine. I'm remotely, turning off the machine. Again, this could be anywhere, right? And one thing that is really cool is that even if the machine is off, I can run this other script again, which is just embedding the getWSMan commandlet that will get me a list of physical assets on the machine. Now let's see if I can do this with the machine being off. I just love this part. See, like the machine is off. You can see the machine is still off, no tricks here. Could be anywhere, right? I could have this machine in Argentina for that matter. And from my machine, wherever I am, I can, even when the machine is off, I can retrieve the list of physical assets. I can see what the memory is on this machine. I can see, it has the Lenovo chassis. I can see anything I need to know about this machine. This is just one example in the interest of time. Sorry? Yes, let me show you that. That's a great segue. That's actually the next step of the demo. Perfect. Thank you so much. So if I want to turn it back on, so let's do set power state again. So we use set power state to turn it off. If we want to turn it on, power state is true for turning it on. And I'm going to pass my credentials again. So let's see. Takes a few seconds, right? And now it says return value true, right? Let's look at the machine, because it takes a few seconds until it actually shows you in the machine. So you can see, again, if you can't read, that's fine. As you can see, ThinkPad, it's on, right? I love this. For me, this is magic. If you asked me like 10 years ago about this, I would have said, no way, we'll never be able to do this. This machine is anywhere. If I manage, remote branches, whatnot, I don't need to keep flying there. I can just do it all from my machine at work, my, home machine, whatever I need. So I just love the power of this. So just to close, because we're out of time, let me show you one more thing. Why would you learn PowerShell? I mean, if I didn't convince you yet with all of this, basically, you can just think what you need to do, type it in a script, or share with the community if you know there are so many scripts already out there, and just get what you need to do, right? All of your tasks, all of your abstractions right there for you to leverage. You can also manage server core machines. Again, because of the time we have, I didn't get to show you that. But you can manage server core as well with PowerShell. And you can change your scripts and your solutions as your needs change. One last thing I want to show you. Again, these are the extra slides on server core that I wanted to leave here, just so you see them. One last thing I want to show you. You see a gentleman on the white T-shirt here? This is a real story. When I presented at TechEd US with the gentleman on the pink shirt, which is actually Jeffrey Snower, who is the inventor of PowerShell. If you didn't know him until now, awesome, brilliant mind. So we were outside after our session, super happy, we were done. And then we ran into Frank, who is the gentleman on the white T-shirt. And he finds out that we are from the PowerShell team, and he's like, you know what? I just love you guys. You're my heroes. I feel like I'm in Disney World. I'm like, what's going on? So he explained to us that since he started using PowerShell, again, he started borrowing scripts from other people, downloading code from the web, whatnot. Since he started using PowerShell to automate all of his IT tasks, he saved so much time and so many resources to his company that his managers decided to give him a 17% raise for his salary. So I'm not making up, marketing stuff. It's not an advertisement for PowerShell. This is actually a real story of a real user, a real customer we run into in the street in New Orleans. So it's just so flexible and so useful from that perspective. And finally, last slide. This is super fun as well. One of my coworkers had a baby a couple of weeks ago. When he was, in the hospital with his wife, with a new baby, he decided to write this PowerShell script to announce the arrival of his baby. So we will have fun with this. Unbelievable, right? Like the whole story of how the delivery happened with the stats. Obviously, I changed the name in the interest of privacy, so it's John Doe, but I promise you, real script from one of my coworkers at Microsoft. So you can even have fun with this, So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll be in the research bar. Thanks a lot. Thank you.